everybody. Welcome to this amazing episode of the Brilliantly You Business Show. This is going to be the start of something new that I'm going to be doing every single month, and I'm bringing on an amazing guest expert. And this week, this one is extra special with me because I've got a friend of mine, Tammi Heals, who I'll share in a second about how we actually know each other. But I'm really excited for this episode today to talk all about branding today. And Tammi is an expert in this field. So thank you so much for joining me today, Tammi. I'm so excited to do this finally. We've been talking about this for a while and I just happen to have a cold. So hey ho, we're doing it anyway. We are embracing the imperfection and doing this regardless. But thank you so much for being here, Tam. How are you?
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited for this chat. Excited to be here.
I know, I can't wait. So Tammi, as I say, she is a friend of mine. So we actually used to work together. So back in our previous lives as corporate junkies, we actually worked together. God, how many years ago now? Probably at least 10, if not more. I don't know.
So yes, I do, because it was, and it's, I love this story. I was thinking about this this morning, and we met, I pre-interview for my first ever corporate role straight out of uni.
Wow.
So I graduated in 2008. So it would have been 2008 or 2009. And
yeah, it must have been because I started there in 2008.
Yeah.
So maybe it was, like the following year. Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah, it was a while ago because I came up to sit with you and Katie, I think it was.
Probably.
Yeah. To get a feel for the environment of being in this corporate world, because I worked in the call center. I had done for years whilst I've been at college, and this was like my first opportunity to step up into the head office in the design teams. And I came to sit with you to see what the vibe was like. And I just remember we were in hysterics and laughing the entire time. I was like, I'm happy with this.
Love it. Yeah, me and my friend Katie was the person I sat next to, and she's wonderfully weird. She was just, nothing held back. She'll tell you every little disgusting detail. It was amazing. So yeah, obviously we welcomed Tammi into our weird little thing. So Tammi and I used to work for a retail company, and we were both in the kind of design piece. So we would design the catalogs and make all the products look pretty inside of the catalogs. And so we worked together for several years and we had a lot of fun. And so now it's so cool that we are both now in this online space building our own businesses after both kind of deciding we wanted to do things ourselves. So I love the fact that we are both here in this world and we can now get to chat. And branding, obviously we've both got that design background, and so branding but it's more than just the logos and the pretty website and stuff, isn't it? So we're going to be talking about branding today because Tammi is really honed in on that field. So I'm going to bring her awesomeness and expertise into this episode today. So Tam, tell us a little bit about, obviously we talked about how we met and kind of stuff. So I'd love for you to just share a bit about your background and how you got into obviously kind of deciding to run your own business, and what was it about the branding side that you really sort of fell in love with and you wanted to start off with focusing on in your business?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll try and keep this brief because, as always, you can talk about whatever you're passionate about, you can talk about for days. So my background was very much in design, but there was more and more strategy that kind of got bolted on along the way as my career progressed within the corporate world, and you were planning campaigns as well as being a part of the deliverable and so the design side. And I found that I really enjoyed the combination of having that strategy in order to influence the design. So as much as I am a creative, I really like having very clear like parameters and expectations, and being able to deliver a creative campaign that helps deliver, rather than just a creative campaign that's just there. Like, I'm a designer, I'm not an artist. And that for me is kind of the key difference. And as my career developed, when it comes to branding, it's funny because I started my business with the intention of just being a side hustle, and it was never going to be anything more. And then fell in love with it, loved the variety, loved the progress. I started as a generic designer. So I say generic designer, I would design for anything. I didn't have a speciality. And then over time, I realized that the bit that I loved from my corporate job was the specific variety of designing for things like campaigns and catalogs. So it was like, it was technically branding, but it was branding campaigns as opposed to branding businesses. And I took that branding aspect and really honed in on how I could support business owners, not just with the visual side, but bringing in that strategic element as well. So why you wanted to do it, how you wanted to do it, what the point of the brand was in order for us to be able to visually communicate that. And it just all came together. And then over time, I've taken that and applied it to various different things. And now I run 2 businesses, although I have 3 brands. And yeah, it's just kind of developed over time from that, with its roots in the corporate world, but now really having that space to make it my own, and really step into the way that I want to brand, like myself, in order to help others. There's a lot of brandception going on.
I think that's such a cool thing, isn't it? I think that's why I think so many people love to then build their own business, because we want to do things our way. It's like, having a job and the safety and the experience that we all gain from working, but it's like, actually, when you have that inside, you're like, oh, but I want to do things my way, and I want to now adapt things, and I want to put my spin on it. That's very similar. Like, I just love the fact that I love the variety that I've got in my business, and I love that you're saying you get to do things your way, and from all of your experience that you've got, you now get to help so many other people to not just think about what they're doing, but why, like the intention behind it. Because I think that can be, I certainly see that, and that was a gap I had. It's like, what's the intention and the purpose of all of these things?
The corporate world, the biggest irritation that I ever had is that I never felt listened to. I'm very much, I love coming up with ideas. I love coming up with new approaches and new ways and pushing that innovation. And when you're in that corporate construct, it's really difficult to have those ideas listened to and kind of implemented. And a lot of the time, you're just kind of expected to be creative, but toe the line. And the two of those are in such conflict that it's really, really hard to balance the two. It's like, you can be as creative as you want, as long as it fits within this box that we
within the box.
Exactly. So being in my own business, and this is something I'm sure that we'll explore a little bit, the biggest switch for me was when I understood that I wasn't an employee anymore. I was in control and leading, and I could step into that area of expertise, and people were listening to me. And it was like, oh, hey, this is kind of cool. I like the fact that people are coming to me because they want to hear my opinion and want me to help them, as opposed to people coming to me because they want me to articulate their ideas. And I think that for me was a nice big step up, where it's like, okay, I can really own this space, and I can own this passion and creativity that I have, and actually use it in a practical way.
Yeah. And it's also, I think, like, it's helping other businesses to go, you're not confined. Like, you can create your own expansive campaigns and branding. Because corporate world, it's you've got all the guidelines, and that, like you said, you're just be creative, come up with something new, but then when you do come up with something new, they're like, oh, but it doesn't look like how we normally do it. Well,
point, sort of what you asked me to do.
Love it. Okay, so something that I'd love to kind of talk a bit about, because you've obviously been working with lots of different types of businesses and stuff. So what would be some of your sort of top tips for maybe someone who is either in that newer stage of their business, or maybe there's some areas with branding that you see people quite often missing that could really help them to either just refine as well as define if they're kind of in the newer piece when it comes to branding? What are some of those core things that you would recommend to people when thinking about that?
So one of the biggest issues or challenges that I see a lot of business owners face is the fact that when they're considering their branding, particularly as a small business, as a new business, as a startup, they're very much looking at their business as it is now, or how it's going to be in a couple of weeks, where the next sale's coming from, what their next social media post is going to be. It's very much in the present and very hectic, which is really exciting, but can feel like a lot. Whereas branding should never be done for the business that you have now. Branding should always be done for the business that you want to have in the future. And then it helps you by setting that bar where you want to go, and gives you the tools and encourages you to feel like that business that you want to embody to have in the future. Like, your branding should always give you space to grow rather than be restrictive. And if you brand for the business that you have now, so if you invest super early in a lot of money in a logo or anything like that, your business is going to grow and change so quickly over those initial 12 to 18 months that the business that you branded at the beginning won't necessarily be the business that you have coming up to 2 years later. So the timing of branding is kind of pivotal, and understanding what your goals are within your business and how clear and focused you are on those is really going to influence when you need to invest in branding. And as someone who does this for a living, like, I'm never going to tell you not to brand your business. Like, it is important. You need to have visual consistency, because it visually represents the trust that you're building with your audience by always being the same. Like, as humans, we don't necessarily like surprises, particularly when it comes to money. We never want to part with our money to something that we're uncertain about. So consistent visual branding will help you reinforce and reiterate that trust. But if you're at the very early stages, I would suggest looking at investing in branded photography over brand identity for your business. So your brand photography will capture you, because you're going to be the same in your business. Like, you'll have personal growth, but you're still going to be the same person.
Yeah, that's such a good point, actually, because like, I think about, my business has grown and evolved so much I'm coming up for 7 years from when I sort of first, again, like that side hustle. And yeah, I've probably had about 3 different logos. So I love that in terms of, because the photos, that was definitely one of my best investments, was getting a friend of mine who I went to school with, who's like an amateur photographer. I was like, hey, let's go and do a photo shoot. But I didn't do that in the very, very beginning. I waited until I had a little bit more understanding of what I was doing, but it was the best money that I spent, and it transformed my website. Like, my website was, again, okay, and you don't need it to be perfect and gorgeous, but the photos made it look 10 times better. And I love that, because we don't change, but you might, it's going to take a bit of time, isn't it, to kind of find what colors you like and what style you like. And you can adapt and change, as long as I think, for me, I feel like as long as you've got consistency across your different social media platforms. So if right now you really like, green and pink, and then, but maybe in a year you go, actually, I'm really now liking this bit of gray and this, like, as long as I think it's consistent across where you are right now, then, but if you've got one place it's all blues and greens, another one it's pinks and purples, it is going to be confusing, isn't it? So even though you don't have to have, like you're saying, it's just not about having the best logo and even the best website right now, but if you are going to invest in anything, I love that about having photos, because also it helps you so much with your marketing and what you're doing if you've got some great pictures that encompass you. One of the things that I said to my friend photographer was, I didn't want to be all dolled up and not that I would ever wear a suit anyway, but like, I wanted to be in jeans and a t-shirt and my flip-flops, because that's what I am. I had a couple of different tops to start with, but I wanted to show me, because even today, like, I'm wearing makeup. I very rarely wear makeup anymore, but I still wore makeup for my photo shoot, but I wanted to show I'm like anybody else. I'm a real person. And so it's encompassing that part of you. Or if you are more of you want to be seen as more kind of professional and corporate-y, then you can obviously show that piece as well. So I love that point about, investing in photographs, and the logos and the styling can kind of, that is going to evolve just naturally as you go through your business journey, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, one of the most common misconceptions I come across is that branding is the visuals, but it's not. I would say about 85 to 90% of the work that I do with my clients when it comes to branding is strategy. It's all of the thinking, it's the goal setting, it's the planning, it's establishing your tone of voice, your audience, it's all of that stuff. And the visual is the outcome of doing that work. And if you're starting out new and fresh, from a financial point of view, from a very practical financial investment, if you have £300 to spend, £300 worth of branded photos is going to help you across your social platforms, your website, your LinkedIn, all your profiles, any business memberships, anything like that you have. It gives you content off the bat, and it helps, it goes a lot further, and it doesn't have to rely on the strategy of what your business is and where it's going, because it's representative of you. Whereas your logo, if you invest that £300 in a logo and only a logo, then you have one image that you can use that isn't flexible, that isn't variable, that isn't based on that strategy. And that strategy is going to change and develop so quickly, like we were talking about, that it's not a wise investment at that stage. It'd be much better to save that money until you have 3,000 to invest, when you can do the whole thing and get your website up together and really communicate and really hone in on who you want to talk to, what you want to talk to them, and what it is that you deliver, and then have that visual representation come through. So yeah, that would be probably one of the core things that I see, particularly with new business owners. Like, always consider photography, because it is part of your brand, it's part of your visual identity, but you get more bang for your buck effectively.
Yeah. And it's like, if you do want to have a logo, I mean, you can have a go yourself, use Canva. It's like, again, if you just want something just to get started, if you are going to kind of create, and I'm all about the imperfect action, it's like minimum viable, and if you want to create something just so you can create a simple website that just has some of the core stuff, you can use Canva, but yeah, when you've got more of that definition of, once you've muddle through, because you are going to muddle through, there's going to be times where you're like, I'm just going to fudge this and see, go with the flow. And honestly, then when you've got a clearer idea, then you can really then go to an expert who can really help you bring all of that together.
Yeah, exactly what you said there. If you need to have a logo, or you feel the need to have a logo, go on to Google Fonts, because you know that the licensing is fine, because licensing is a whole other part of branding that you would need to know about. Find a font that is clear, plain, and simple. Write out your name, pick a color palette. So I would recommend sticking with fairly neutral colors, and then maybe a couple of pops if you know that your business is going to be incorporating, say, blues and oranges, then you can start to incorporate that within your branding. That's totally fine. But for the most part, just keep it simple, because that means that when it comes time to rebrand, it's not a stark contrast between two very different styles. It's up leveling a timeless design that you've already established. And it gives you that scope to find yourself and find your balance and try new trends and try on different things without having to worry about committing to one very stark specific style. So yeah, it's all about giving you that flexibility that still builds recognition and authority in those early stages, where you're going to you'll see so much growth.
Yeah. So what would be some of the things, because like we say, obviously the visual, you said it's such a small part of it. So I'd love to talk a little bit about more of the strategy side of things, because you were saying also about, it's thinking about not necessarily all in the present, but long term. So how do we actually do that? Like, what are some of the things, and obviously, not to give everything away, but what are some things that people can actually take away to go, what does that even look like? Like, how do I know what my business is going to look like in 5 years' time? So how do people kind of take some of that when it comes to that branding?
Yeah, of course. And it will depend on what stage of business that you're at as to how far out I would recommend that you do this. So if you're in the early stages, I would recommend maybe looking 6 months to 12 months out, because it's going to change quite significantly. You're finding your feet, you're finding your rhythm as a business owner, let alone as a business. Whereas if you've been in business for maybe kind of a year to 2 years, start looking at 5 years out, and then anywhere past that, start looking further out if you want to, but it depends on you. I don't look past about 5 years because my business changes so much, so drastically. And I love that I don't want to have those barriers in place. But a lot of it will actually start with who you want to be as a business owner. Like, what is the lifestyle that you want your business to facilitate and afford you? And what does that look like? Because once you've established what your personal goals and what your life is going to look like as your business being a part of that, it will help to negate that feeling that sometimes creeps in of, this is only for now, like my business is only temporary. It's very rare that we look at corporate jobs and see them as temporary, but there is this tendency, especially with early businesses, that we're only looking at them short term rather than long term. And a business is a long term thing. Like, we want to be doing this forever. That's why we've left corporate. We don't want to be going back. So definitely identify and spend some time working out how you want your business to fit around your life, how much involvement you want, what kind of business owner you want to be, whether you want it to be a personal brand, whether you want a team. Just kind of get all of that out of what it could look like for you in a year's time or in 5 years' time. And then from there, you need to build the business that is going to facilitate those goals for you as the business owner. So that's kind of the stage where you start looking at, okay, so if I want a team, I want to deliver these kind of services, I want to be known in this field, I want to have, 4 days a week to myself and only work 1 day a week. What kind of services can you start introducing that allow you to work that amount of time? What kind of content is going to be helpful, and who is it that you want to work with? And you can kind of get as specific as you want. I mean, the ideal client avatar is a subject that I have a bit of a unique approach with. I find it really interesting to talk about, because knowing who you're talking to is absolutely essential, but it doesn't mean that you need to know the ins and outs of every aspect of their life. Like, if you can hold a conversation with someone who embodies that, you can hold a conversation with someone who is an ideal client. And keep in mind that, again, you need that flexibility, because you're going to change, you're going to grow, you're going to adapt. A service that you launch in January might look completely different by the time you've run it a couple of times in March. So it's more around focusing on actions rather than deliverables. So for instance, if you're thinking that you want to have more freedom in your life and you want to be working 3 days a week instead of 5 in a year's time, there's no point in setting yourself, oh, that means that I have to earn £10,000 this month. The two aren't comparable. So what you need to be doing is like, right, okay, what actions can I take that will allow me to get an extra half day back over the course of the next 6 weeks, so that in a year's time of building up these cumulative actions, can I then say, yeah, I'm just working 3 days a week. So yeah, I think it's really important to look at the action side. And I know that I'm talking a lot around goals rather than branding, but your branding is there to help you establish the business and the way that you communicate from that business. So you really need to know what why you've got that. Why are you doing it? Why are you doing your business? And what is that going to afford you? I saw your wonderful post the other day about why versus what. And I really, really liked that, because knowing why you've started is fine, but that's not going to help you move forward to what you want to get out of it.
That was and this was something that I learned from one of my mentors, is the word why is a very judgmental word. And it is like this whole concept of, like, your why should make you cry, and if you don't know your big why and all this stuff. But it's when you actually ask the question, like, it's, why did you start your business, or why are you doing this business? Normally people will say, I'm doing it for my kids, I'm doing it because I want to leave a legacy, I want to travel the world, I want to be free, like all this stuff. They're not why. that's what, like, you want the dream house. It's all what things. So yeah, I made this post about saying what do you want your business rather than why, because yeah, why I started when I was 32, whatever it was, is very different to kind of what keeps me going now. Yeah, and I think something that Tammi and I were talking about just before we started this video was a bit about branding and kind of really putting ourselves in it. And this was definitely an exercise that really helped me, was to, it's looking at not just kind of what am I doing this for, what do I want my business to look like, but it's really looking inside with who am I, and looking at what are your core values, what do you want people to feel when they come across you. So like, I'm a personal brand, and most of the people that I work with and are personal brands. And I think even more so with that, then it's looking at how do you want people to feel when they come across you. And if that's a question that maybe you haven't asked yourself, is that can be something really helpful to see, like, do you want people to feel, like you're trustworthy, that you're authentic, that you've got integrity, that you are, like, I was going to say like a man of your word or a woman of your word, like there's going to be those core values. And I think that is such a huge part of it. And it's a bit like you said, Tam, it's like, at the end of the day, if you want to be living a lifestyle where you're only working a few days a week, but you also want to give that message across to people, so that you don't want to be showing that you're always working, because that's not actually aligned with the lifestyle that you want to live. And also you want to show other people, hey, you can do this. So show people that you're working when you're, how you're creating systems and leverage. And I'm all about the leverage and automations and systems, because I don't want to be working 7 days a week and 40 hours a week anymore. So I teach about creating systems to allow you, for your business to work around it. So yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts? And do you see that as well in some of the stuff that you do about really helping people to look kind of inside with, who are you and how can you bring that into your branding?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And there are 2 points that I want to pick up from what you've just said there. The first one is, absolutely, your business is very much around, it needs to be built around, who do you want to be? What kind of business owner do you want to be? How do you want to show up? And I have 2 different businesses now. One is a personal brand, one is not. And the difference between the 2 of them is really interesting. And as a branding professional, it's really challenging and fun to explore the different ways of growing these 2 businesses. One that is very reliant on me, which means that it's not infinitely scalable because it's reliant on me. Whereas this other business that is not a personal brand and it's developing its own identity, it's really exciting to see the difference between the 2 and how they're growing, because my personal brand is very reliant on who am I, what do I have to say, what's important to me to communicate, what is my unique view of this world, this topic, my experience and everything else. Because I mean, I hate to break it to you, but at the end of the day, when you boil it all down, every business is the same. You're offering a solution in exchange for money. This is what we do. Every business does that. The key differentiator is you as an individual and your unique sum of experiences and views and the way you talk, and everything like that all culminated into a business. So having those 2 is actually quite fun. And the other thing was processes. Yes, processes and systems are actually a huge part of branding, because branding is every single touch point that someone comes into contact with in relation to your business. So your onboarding process, your customer experience, is a pivotal part of your brand, because it's how they're experiencing your brand. It's how they're emotionally invested in connecting with that brand and the journey that they experience as they go through this process of working with you. And if you can deliver a standout brand experience by having automation to make sure it's always consistent, because if you're doing it manually, it's going to depend on your mood of the day, how much coffee you've had, what you've remembered, your internet connection. My goodness, so many
Yeah.
variables.
Is it time of the month? Like, oh my God, it's like, do not be customer facing if it's time of the month very often.
Right, absolutely. So systems and processes actually facilitate a more consistent brand experience, which means that your brand is going to be better received because they're always having that consistent, enjoyable brand experience as a consumer. So yeah, when people are like, branding is just a logo, my goodness, get my soapbox, like, let's have a chat, pretty much. Because no, it is literally, it's everything.
Yeah. And for people who listen to this on the podcast, because we're doing this a video, I was putting up my middle fingers to be like, no, because it's so true. And I think, yeah, really leaning into who you are. Like Tam and I was saying about swearing and stuff. And I love to swear. And if anyone who's been following me for a while or knows me at all, I swear a lot and I love it. And it just comes out. I don't even realize it sometimes, but I embraced that. So rather than in the beginning of my earlier days, I tried to be all professional and corporate-y and what you feel like you should be in inverted commas, like you feel like you should be seen a certain way rather than really just embracing you. And so again, kind of having the help of somebody to help me see, yeah, like you said, Tam, what are those unique things? And part of my uniqueness is kind of saying how it is and saying some of the things that people don't feel like you should say. And if I say fuck and get passionate about things, I don't care. And if somebody doesn't align with that, and if someone is really offended by swear words, well, I'm okay with them not liking me or wanting to work with me because we're not necessarily a fit. Doesn't mean you have to swear yourself to work with me, but the people that like me and like to follow me and like to kind of join me in things, they like that about me, and that's great. Rather than trying to hide your uniqueness and hide your quirks and your mannerisms and who you are and what makes you smile and what makes you excited and passionate and all the things that you do, if you try and like dumb it down and dull it down, you're not being your authentic self. And that's why this show, I called it Brilliantly You Business Show, because I want every single person that I can touch to be confident and okay and embrace the brilliance in you, whether that's your quirks and your mannerisms, but as well as your skills and your talents. It's about being brilliantly you. And that's what I'm so passionate about, because the more, as I've evolved and I've grown in myself and my confidence, that part is so pivotal. And it's going to come across in everything that you do. And people are going to feel the difference, aren't they? Even if it's not necessarily that visual thing, they're going to feel when you're being your true self. And that's just going to make it magical.
And this is it. And I think that a lot of business owners, and I speak from experience because I went through this as well. So, I know that this is something I've experienced. I know that it will be something that other people potentially, if you're watching this video and you experience this as well. And it's the corporate hangover. And we've been brought up in our professional lives to have certain understandings of how you should and shouldn't react and act within a corporate or a business setting, within a work environment. And I think a lot of the things that trip people up are leaving your job to start a business, which then turns into a job rather than a business. And this is again one of the reasons why, if you're not able to invest in working with a branding professional in the early stages, give it some time, because you are going to find your feet. And it took me a long time to kind of get over and ditch that corporate hangover in order to really embody and embrace who I wanted to be within my business, and step away from the goals. If my initial goals were things like, I want to earn the same amount that I was earning at my day job, or I don't want to be working weekends because at the time I was, or like very small, very corporate focused goals as a hangover from everything that I've been through the corporate world. Whereas now my goals are like, I want to launch something new. I want to innovate the path using this medium. I want to start a new business because I've got something else that I want to say. I've got a podcast that I want to talk about these things. We were talking about swearing, and my latest episode is exactly that, swearing as brand language. And I never would have been able to have these conversations with impact to others if I didn't step away from that old version and just kind of go, you know what, I'm done with the corporate. I need to break those ties, and I really need to identify who I am in as a business owner, because you've got that spark there, but you just need to find out exactly how that fits for you and what role you're going to play in your business.
Yeah, I love that. The corporate hangover. That's so
Mm-hmm.
true. It is just, it's kind of accepting that, oh, there are no rules, like, it's like we were saying in the beginning about designing within a corporate. It's like, be creative, but within the box. And it is so true. It's when you step out of that and it's like, you're still in that box, and it's kind of slowly breaking through each side and go, oh, I'm in charge. Like, I get to decide, I get to choose what the hell I want to do. And how amazing is that? And like you say, it's having that impact on people and giving your view in your way and loving it as you do it. And there's going to be so many people out there that are going to love it. There's going to be some people who are like, not for me. And that's okay. Getting over this people pleaser bullshit. And I want everyone to like me. And I think that's such a huge growth point in everyone. Again, it took me several years to get to that point with, I want everyone to like me, to I'm okay if you don't, because there's going to be a lot of people that do, and I want to hang out with them. And that's great.
Absolutely. And again, that's kind of the pivotal point of branding. That's why we have branding. Branding and marketing are there to bring in the people that want to work with you, that are right to work with you. And branding and marketing is there to repel the ones who are not the right fit. And I think that it's often overlooked that it is there to repel as well. I mean, how many billions of people are there on this planet? How many millions of small businesses are there across the world? And if you think that you could service even 1% of those, like, you've got your work cut out for you. So it's okay to push away the ones that aren't a good fit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we could talk all day about branding and stuff, but it is, I think, the core things, I think that, I've taken, and the biggest shifts that have helped, me, and now I see in other people as well, is really just embracing you. So I think the quicker you can sit down and ask yourself some of these questions, who do you really want to be? And all the great stuff that Tammi said is, and look at that. How do you want people to feel? Who are you? Like, what's important to you? And what things do you really stand against? Like, if you hate people that are, I don't know, like phony and fake, then you can incorporate the stuff that you stand against as well. And I think the quicker you can get that clarity on that, the better. Because people need to see you and hear you and see your brilliance, whatever it is that you do in your business. Then I think the quicker you can cut the crap and start actually being yourself and enjoying it. Because we don't want to come out of a job and going, oh, this sucks. I mean, there's going to be some suck, isn't there? There's going to be hard times. And but if you're always yourself, I always say, like, if you're always you and you're always true to yourself, you can't really go wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the quicker that you can, exactly what you were saying there, just to echo that the quicker that you can find that clarity and find who you want to be and everything else within your business, I honestly believe the easier it is for you to start achieving your goals, because there's so much less resistance there. You're not resisting what you've put in place because it's there to support you, as opposed to be the next thing for you to try and commit to and try and reach. Like, these aren't appraisals. These are literally, you have the opportunity to change everything about not only your life, but every other life that you work with. And that's just so powerful. And you don't get that when you're stood by the water cooler at work, bitching away about the corporate world. So,
I know.
Exactly. Oh. You have that ability to impact others. So embrace who you are, embrace what you want to do in the unique way you want to do it. Even if no one else is doing anything similar, that's okay. And you'll find your version of success.
Love it. Oh, this has been such a fab conversation, Tammi. Thank you so much. And it's always good, it's just nice to get other people's take on it, because you work in this space, you see the areas that get people stuck and the areas that can really transform it. So thank you so much for sharing your awesomeness. Please tell people how they can find you. Make sure you're following Tammi. She's awesome. And say she's got a couple of businesses, so she might be able to help you in multiple ways. So Tammi, how can people find you online?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm all over the web, which I'm sure will be in the show notes more than likely somewhere. But if you want to connect with me, the best place would probably be Instagram. So you can find me at Shadowcat Creative for all of your business branding needs. And you can find me at Podcasts Media for any of your podcast related needs, because those are two businesses that I run. I also host my own podcast called The Brand Lounge that you can find on Apple and Spotify. So yeah,
love it. And I love the fact that Tammi's got cats in her branding, because we are just like simpatico, love cats. So yeah, Tammi is my girl. Like we are so connected. I love it. Yeah. So yeah, definitely follow Tammi, and say all the details will be in the show notes as well. And if you've got any questions for either of us, you know, far away, there'll be some way to be able to connect with us around, whether it's a video, podcast, wherever you are. Yeah, enjoy it, and let us know how you get on, because, you know, we love to I love to hear how people take the takeaways that you get from episodes and how you implement it. Please feel free to share what works for you and what your biggest takeaways were from this episode. So share that with us however you can around this video and this episode. And make sure that you're subscribing, follow this series. So this is the Brilliantly You Business Show. Thank you so much, Tammi. It's been awesome. And go and smash your branding, put you into it. And yeah, have an amazing rest of your day. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Brilliantly You Business Show. Take care. Bye.
Bye.